any procedure that FOIA dictates, notice, open to the public, 3, subject purpose, code site, is deemed a violation and anybody can sue you. And I'm sure we all have our favorite citizens in our locality. We have them everywhere in government. The mere mention of their name or hearing their voice on the phone just makes us go. Right? And those are the people that are going to sue you. They're mad at you for something else. So they're going to slam you on a FOIA violation. So again, comply with the law. It makes you bulletproof. So they can file a lawsuit. And in FOIA land, the suit has to be heard in 7 days. Okay? The burden of proof is not on this citizen that annoys us. The burden of proof, all they have to do is, Your Honor, I allege the Board of Supervisors had a meeting. I saw 3 of them at the public park, and they had maps out, and they were diagramming things. Then the judge is going to look at you and go, okay, government, you proved to us that you did this right. Show us your notice for that little gathering you had. No notice means violation. So now what happens? The judge, the person who now just beat you in court for a crazy little violation, but a violation nonetheless, is now entitled to recover their attorney's fees and costs. And I don't have to remind anybody in government, do we have money to pay people who we don't like for mistakes we're making? No. Does it even make sense to anybody? All right? Further, if the judge finds that the violation was willfully and knowingly done, we don't care what this FOIA law says. We want to talk over here because it's controversial. My favorite forefather is James Madison. My favorite quote of his is, bad cause seldom fails to reveal itself. Right? It's going to come out. So if it's a willful violation, you can be in your individual capacity as a participator, as the bad actor, assessed a monetary penalty up to $2,500 for the first violation. That's for no notice. And then up to $5,000 for any subsequent violation. And this money, you can't voucher it back to the locality. It comes out of your pocket. So the Maria Everett rule is, if I got $2,500 in my pocket, yeah, that'll ever happen. But if I did, is it going to go to people I don't like in the first place for mistakes that I'm making for what the law already requires me to do? No, it's not. So it's an approach. This law, a lot of it is an approach. If you hate the law, then maybe you need to resign, because this comes with the territory. Look at the perks. They're giving you breakfast. You go to your board meetings, they give you a dang sandwich. You know, those are the big perks of the job. That's about it, okay? But this is the luggage that goes with the perks, okay? And with all due respect, nobody put a gun to anybody's head in this room and said, you must serve. You did this to yourselves. Right? Phyllis has to jump in here. She thinks can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can? Yes, you can. I just wanted to mention one thing.
Yes.
Over the years, Marie and I have been doing this a long time, and there are things that sort of chronically happen that people think are no harm, no foul. And one of them that I just thought of while she was talking is, you go into closed session appropriately, you do your 3 things to get in there, and then somebody thinks of something else that they want to talk about in closed session, and they're already in closed session, so they say, oh, in the meantime, let's talk about such and such. Please don't do that. You need to go back out of closed session, certify that you discussed only what you went in for, and go back in. But I've been in closed sessions where this has happened, and I know why it happens. It's people are thinking, we really don't want to go through that whole rigmarole because we're right here and we're closed. Don't do that, because you'll be violating the act. It's just one thing that I've seen over the years.
Yeah, it's back to that adage, convenience doesn't belong to the government. And what last, I guess, parting words is, most of us got into public service because we were tired of the way things were being done. We're gonna be different. And we have a saying at the General Assembly, don't become that which you sought to vanquish. It looks different when you're out there than when you're up here. And once you get up here, you're like, oh, I see the tendency to be like, oh, let's go over here and be. Again, compliance with this law is never newsworthy. It's its own reward. And so the idea is, it's an approach. I have this law that I must comply with, and I'm just gonna comply with it because I've got staff that will help me get there. Okay? And also you need to stay in touch with your citizen brain. Because as a citizen, what do you expect of your government? We have pretty high expectations of government. We expect them to do what they want, what they're supposed to do in the right manner and professionally, don't we? But then what do we give as the public official? Are we the FOIA Schmoya group? Well, we need to stay connected. If there's a controversial issue and it's a FOIA situation, and we talk about open government transparency, and now everybody's like, this was not too bad, but now it's getting really bad. She's talking about open government and transparency. But we are all the open government folks. And let me just prove it to you. Before you got elected, let's just pretend that there was a landfill coming in your jurisdiction. And it was coming within 2 miles of your house. Now, as the citizen, my citizen side, as a citizen, do you think you should have the right to call up the locality and say, I want a copy of the plans. I want to know hours of operation of this landfill. Is it going to be properly lined because I have a well? Do you think you should just be able to call and receive records? Yes. What is that? Open government. We tend to appreciate open government when it hits us squarely in the face. So remember, stay connected to your citizen side and what your expectations are of citizen, and make sure that you're delivering it.
Can you do a little bit about process, about answering a FOIA request?
Okay, process on FOIA requests. The way it works is a FOIA request at the local government level is a little more difficult than it is at the state level, because the locality is the public body. You are also the public body as the board. But they can ask anybody. They can ask you as a board member to make a FOIA request to you. They don't have to know exactly who the right person in the locality to respond. So they can ask you, I want to make a FOIA request. Okay, they just have your responsibilities to get that request into the right hands of the right person. And it's a 5-day time period. We're talking 5 working days. It says upon receipt. So we encourage people, though it's not required, to have some internal process in the locality for managing FOIA requests, because one citizen could FOIA the chairman of the board, the county manager, some department head, or somebody else, all in the same government body, and 5 of you are all running around trying to respond to this FOIA request and not knowing the other's doing it. There are a lot of localities that created a FOIA office, so everything comes in to that main FOIA place so they can ensure compliance. So the process is you must respond. FOIA is about, in the record side, about being responsive. In our example of the landfill, if you never heard from the locality, how happy are you as a citizen? I made a FOIA request, they didn't even respond to me. We're not happy about that. FOIA requires us to respond within 5 working days. So even when we talk about what a public record is, in FOIA land, it's not whether it's a public record. Pretty much it is a public record if we're touching it. The right question in FOIA land is, does that public record have to be released? Because there's a boatload of exemptions out there. About 150 the last time I counted, because FOIA recognizes there are times in government that we need to hold it close to the vest. And it is in the public interest to do so. but we still have to respond, even though it's an exempt record, or we can go into a closed session, we still have to have that meeting in open, and that's another common mistake. Well, our only agenda item is this closed session, so we didn't give notice. Wrong. Because your motion has to be done in open session. So closed meeting always has to occur in the context of an open meeting. Okay? So it's about being responsive, responding in 5 days. Even if it's exempt, you still have to respond, and there's 5 responses. Here it is. The record doesn't exist. Some of it's exempt, and I don't have to release it to you. All of it is exempt. And we need more time. Okay, but you have to respond. On the Counsel website, we have a copy of every letter that the law requires you to write. So there's 5 responses, and everything but yes, here it is, requires a letter. So stay in compliance. Just use our letters. I'll leave some cards. Call us. We are a resource to you. We have a toll-free number here, and we can help you, because we're all about the win-win situation that FOIA can be. To responsive to meeting the needs of our citizens, because let me ask you, are you in public service for the money? Okay? Well then, something is different about us, that we do this. Okay? So it's about being responsive and carrying that mission through, so that the light shines upon us in terms of, wow, they do this right. They do this the way it's supposed to happen. What our ideals are as citizens. Make sure you deliver them as the public official. And I think I'm done, and I thank you all very much for your attention, and good luck out there.
We have a little bit of time for questions, so we'd be happy to take them.
Yes.
Just speaking.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Does that work? Use your big voice.
Yes, we have a number of new facilities that have been built in our county, and the supervisors as a whole have been invited to tour the facilities. Is that a situation where it would be okay for all of us to go together to tour the facilities?
Okay, let's do this like in Rome. Who thinks that's okay to do it? With notice.
Notice.
It's still a meeting. It's still a meeting. Touring is still a meeting. If you're going to discuss, it is still a meeting. Now, do you have to take them with you in the bus? No. You just have to give notice. We have sort of an approach for exactly this, because sometimes we tour things in government. I always feel, if it's handheld, I feel like I need to sing something, you know. But go ahead. Take a request right now. The idea when it's a situation where you have to tour, we suggest that you do it this way. You have a meeting, you notice it, you have a meeting in the parking lot, wherever the bus is going to pick you up. And you sit down and you say, this is what's going to happen today. We're going to go and tour this new facility, and you're welcome to follow in your cars behind, but you know, there's not room in the van, and FOIA certainly doesn't require you to get a van big enough for every citizen in your locality, or just the 6 that come. And then you tour. Well, you try to limit your discussion. You use your eyes. Let somebody explain to you what's going on. Don't start that discussion. And then you return to the parking lot and tell them we're reconvening after the tour, and we're going to tell you basically what happened. Have a question and answer period for about an hour. And that way, again, people are like, wow, they're being upfront. Excuse me, a reputation for openness. You're trying to deal with the situation. And same thing if you're touring some private property and they were like, the public's not allowed, then your choice to them is, then you need to come to us, because we carry our open meetings requirements everywhere we go. There is no switching out. Oh, I'm a citizen now. No, that public hat stays on your head, always. That's the other benefit that you got, you didn't even know. Or you say, private sector person that we're touring your facility, if you're worried people are seeing some proprietary something or other, then you make a video and you show it to us at a public meeting. Or you let the public in, or guess what? We're not coming. I mean, You just have to think, I have open meeting requirements that I must meet. Yes, sir.
There are regional projects, among counties. Suppose regional jails, regional airports, and things of that nature. Positive and negative safety projects. If two supervisors from one county met with two supervisors from another county to discuss something of that nature, is that a conflict?
Well, it's not a conflict, but it depends on how it happened. Are those, I look at it as, have you been deputized? It's like, has the big body said, hey, you two, go meet with those two and talk about it and come back and tell us what's happening. If that's the case, you have been now turned into a subcommittee. You can call it a task force, you can call it a committee, you can call it a group. But if the board has created anything to advise it back or to perform a delegated function, that subgroup is now a public body under FOIA, notice, meetings in public. So the answer to your question, under those facts, yes. If it was two showed up from one locality to the regional jail meeting and two showed up from another locality and they sat there, no problem. Even if they talk, because they're not representing the larger body. So you know when you're performing a delegated function or to do something, as I said, you two go over there and find out what's going on and report back.
Have your closed session, you finished your closed session, you discussed industrial development coming on or something like that. Who or can you discuss that with anybody after the closed session is completed?
Sure you can. And I'm glad you asked that question because closed sessions aren't confidential. And we have this idea, all it is absence of public. And as Phyllis said, you have to stay on topic. And what happens is that you come out and everybody's agreed, well, we're gonna just not talk about this, but you always get one on every board that goes and talks to the newspapers, or they talk to staff, they talk to family members. Well, this is what we talked about in a closed session. Sure, they're allowed to because they have First Amendment rights. You don't have a FOIA problem, you have a political problem. And so now, the way it tracks back into FOIA land is the rest of the board's like, I'm gonna kill this blabbermouth. So now we wanna have a closed meeting to talk about the blabbermouth and tell the blabbermouth, hey, knock it off. No can do in a closed session. Because you didn't hire them and you have no ability to remove them. And if you do, if you have an ability to sanction them or to otherwise reprimand them, then potentially you could go into a closed session to talk about their performance. But generally speaking, having a gripe session about each other is not the territory of a closed meeting. Sure, we would prefer not to air that publicly, but there are ways that we can talk two by two. Yo, blabbermouth, knock it off. Next person, yo, blabbermouth, knock it off. But you can't stop them. Well, maybe you can, but they have a right to talk about whatever happened in the closed session. And that industry that you're just courting, they told the wrong person, and so your neighboring jurisdiction just stole them from you. Thank you very much.
Question right here. Okay.
Yes.
I'm this is Pinocchio Peters from Hanover County, but I'm one of these people that came from the private sector and like to see things a little bit more efficient, I guess, than this democracy we're talking about. Has VACo...
Okay, totalitarianism, fascism, those are the efficient governments. Do we really want that? Sorry.
That's my lead up. Has VACo or our state legislature ever considered the rule of changing the rule of 3 to a rule of a quorum, either as far as the meeting, timing when a meeting ends?
Simple answer, no. Though the General Assembly in 2005 rewrote the rule of 3 as it applied to them. Of course, because they write the law. But 3 out of 40, 3 out of 100, really? I mean, but, no. There has been, this is my 22nd session and I have never been hearing of any conversation to change the rule of 3.
it would be successful?
No. I mean, with smaller, when you have rule of 3 with 22, you know, sometimes they have these other, you know, kind of, entities that are public bodies. And 3 out of 22, you know, there may be an argument, but when you have 3, 5, 7, 9 member boards, 12 member boards, 3, again, that 3 is your protection, that pesky minority can never discuss the public business without the rest of the body knowing.
Social occasions, one supervisor's having a birthday party, has invited everybody to come to it. When we take a break during the meeting for a dinner hour, in the past, the whole board has gone to dinner together. Is that allowed under any circumstances?
Okay, let me ask you, what are you talking about at dinner?
Really social stuff, no business at
Okay,
all.
all right, let's do this, let's be Roman. Okay, we have the full board at dinner and they're talking about how good the cake was. Who thinks that's a meeting? It's not. So you're good. The conversation, it requires the right number and the right discussion. You're not having a discussion of public business. So you're good.
Question over here.
Yes, you advise us in using email not to respond to all the time, but in the case of, for example, I'm trying to get a better understanding of how the budget in our county works. So I write an email asking for certain information regarding sales tax, meals tax, because I don't understand some of those. So the person I write to then responds to me, also respond to all, because she says, I want everyone on the board to understand this particular result because it's useful for all boards to know the importance of sales tax, meals tax, whatever. Is that okay?
Yes, I mean, informationally using respond to all to impart, you know, hey, look at this article. Here's how we do sales and use tax. Fine. It's just you don't want to generate a conversation in real time. Reply to all when you're just kind of FYI people or just passing information along. No problem at all.
To use your Chamber of Commerce example,
Yeah.
if there's 3 supervisors in the audience and the head of the Chamber of Commerce is at the podium talking about county business, is that a problem? And secondly, if he then turns and says, well, Mr. Supervisor, since you're here in the room, can you enlighten us on this? And the supervisor is now addressing the audience, which includes 2 other supervisors. Is that a problem?
Okay, great question. When you're in the presence of somebody talking about public business, the rule of 3 is your particular body. So in your first facts, I'm the president of the chamber, and I'm talking about, well, and you know, the county's doing this, the county's doing that. No problem, the 3 in the audience. But once, again, it's that lightning strike thing. Once the president says, excuse me, Mr. Supervisor, have I accurately described what the board is considering? And so the supervisor gets up and says yes, and because you're elected officials, you talk a little more about the issue. And then the person maybe, and I encourage you, don't sit together. I mean, just stay apart in that group. But then what happens is supervisor number 2 says, well, that's not really accurate. What really we're doing in the county is this. And then number 3 says, well, my take on this, you see what just happened? 3 or more discussing the public business, beep, beep, beep. So the choice here is 2 of you go, or the 3 of you sit there and lock it down, and just one answer.
Okay, I just wanted to know about text messages. Are they considered phone calls? What are they? What do you do with them?
It's interesting because from a FOIA and FOIA land, I think they're public records if they relate to the public business. But from the Public Records Act position is, are they able to be captured? I mean, they're able to be retained. But don't think, oh, look at that, we just found a new way to do this. Okay? It's about an approach to this. You're doing the people's business. Okay? Again, as a citizen, let's do this as we're all citizens. We're not board members. The board is using text messaging to decide an issue. Who's happy in this room as a citizen? Nobody. Okay? Stay connected.
One more question.
She took my question. Hi, I just wanted you to speak a bit on public notice. Sometimes you hear, well, that means advertising in the paper and it costs so much, and I don't think that's always required.
You're absolutely right. FOIA it was written in 1968, again, before we were all born. And the idea was notice somewhere, a physical notice, and that is still required. And so, you know, in Henrico County or Prince William County, where exactly is that prominent public location that notices are posted? So, but FOIA still requires a physical posting. It never requires newspaper publication. But if you choose to do it, then keep doing it, because what your FOIA, the notice is training the public where to look to find out. Most of us have like a glass board and we put something out at the front door. And we use email, not email, but we also use the website. But FOIA still requires the physical posting. So if your clerks are still just putting it on the website and there's no physical posting, technically you're in violation of law. And as I said, you could be sued for that. So still, and the FOIA Counsel is going to look at that issue, because the point of notice is to beat the bushes. And something pinned to a tree ain't that. Okay?
Thank you, Maria. Thank you all for listening. And some nice Virginia breakfast wine for Maria for her